Bago natin umpisahan itong ating talakayan, gusto ko muna pasadahan na mabilisan. Itong post na to ni Pambansang Dalaga. No? Meron lang ho akong isang pakiusap sa inyo. Sana isama nyo ho sa inyong mga panalangin. Itong si Kong Mike, Senator Dante Marcoleta at yung isa pa nilang kasama. Kung saan wala naman hong ginawang masama yung mga yan. Wala hong dinispal kung pera na sambayan ng Pilipino yung mga yan. Kaya marami ho ngayon nagtataka kung bakit nakakulong itong mga individual na to. Imbis na ikulong si Martin Romualdez, si Saltico, si Amina Pangandaman, yun talagang merong kinalaman sa kaliwat kanang nakawan na nangyayari dito sa administrasyon na to. Panalangin ho natin itong si Senator Dante Marcoleta, itong si dating Congressman Mike Defensor at ito hong isa pa nilang kasama na to na hindi natin alam ang pangalan. Ano ito? Political persecution. Darating ang panahon, iikot ang bola at tayo naman ho ang hindi ho natin ninanasa na yung mga kalaban natin sa politika umabot sa ganito. Kaso ang problema ho mga kababayan, binaboy ho nila yung mga individual na nagkikipaglaban para sa atin. Wala namang ninakaw. Walang kinuhang pera na galing sa kaban ng sambayan ng Pilipino. Ngayon, pagka itong mga individual na to, kagaya ni Marcos Jr., Martin Romualdez, Amina Pangandaman, Zaltico, nakulong, sasabihin nila, paghihigante sa ginawa nila na to, hindi ho ganun. Ngayon pa lang, siniset na ho nila yung naratibo para sa 2020. Dahil mangyayari ang mangyayari. Marami hong makukulong na government official dito sa administration na to pagka pumasok ko ang 2028. Yan ho ang sigurado mga kababayan. Dito sa video na to, pag-usapan ho natin ang interview. Palakpakan ho muna natin. Itong maraming salamat. Senator Dante Marcoleta, dating Congressman Mike Defensor at dito sa isa nilang kaibigan na to. No? Maraming salamat sa mga individual na to. Tuloy-tuloy lang ho tayo sa pagkikipaglaban kung hindi ho natin pwedeng bitawan to kasi kumbaga sa digmaan nalagasan na ho tayo. Yung mga malalapit na kaibigan o mga leader natin kung maituturing talagang pinatumba ng ating mga kalaban. Kaya naman bilang kaisa tayo nitong mga individual na to sa kanilang pinaglalaban, wag ho natin tigilan yung issue ng mga maaanomalyang flood control. Lalo na't sunod-sunod na ho ang pagdating ng mga bagyo na yan. Pag nagkataon, ang gagawin ho ng administrasyon na to, kahit anong bagyo pa dumaan, ang pagtatapal lang ho nila yung impeachment sa Senado. Parang nagkaroon ho sila ng free pass na kahit anong kalamidad, trahedyang mangyari sa Pilipinas. So, pansinin yan. Dito kayo sa impeachment ni Sara Duterte. Ayun na nga, isang like at isang subscribe. Masaya na ho tayo dyan at sa mga susumal sa ating community. Join button nandyan lang ho sa baba. Dito sa video na to, pag-usapan ho natin ang pag-spalpal nitong si Ma'am Pinky Web dito kay Jinky Luistro. Simple lang naman kasi yan. No? Para dito kay Jinky Luistro, aminin mo na kasi natakot kayo, presenta itong si Atty. Zuleika diyan sa impeachment nitong si VP Sara. Diyan sa Senado. Kasi pag nagkataon, hindi na maging paborable sa inyo sasabihin itong si Atty. Zuleika, hindi pa maging paborable. Diba hostile nga siya? Hindi nga siya hostile Wala nga nagsundo dito kay Atty. Zuleika sa bahay niya Kusa siyang nagpunta doon. Gusto niyang ilabas yung kanyang panig. Kung ano nga ba ang nangyari nung mga araw na talagang napundi itong si VP Sara dahil sa mga kabalbalan nitong administrasyon na to. Pakinggan ho natin ang interview nitong si Baculaw dito kay Ma'am Pinky Web.
We tackle the issues, we clarify matters, and we get on point. Fiction and not a fact. That's how Vice President Sara Duterte describes allegations she made grave threats against the first couple and former House Speaker Martin Romualdez. Today's impeachment trial centered on the so-called Oplan Romanov, which the defense is using to justify Duterte's controversial remarks. What impact could these arguments have on the course of the proceedings? Let's get on point with House Lead Prosecutor, Congresswoman Jinky Luistro, who joins us live from the Senate. Congresswoman, good to have you again. Welcome to the show, and always thank you for your time, ma'am.
Good evening, Pinky, and good evening to all our viewers and followers.
Congresswoman Jinky, I was just watching the last minutes of what is happening in the Senate right now before we went on air, and maybe to apprise our viewers right now and myself, Attorney Lorna Capunan was actually saying that hindi na po ipepresent si Attorney Zuleika Lopez. Please tell us more about this.
That is correct, Pinky, at merong tatlong bagay na in-emphasize si Attorney Capunan, no? That includes to avoid redundancy, unnecessary, and repetition, no? So, surplusage, no? To correct. So, that is the reasons, or those are the reasons why we are doing away now with presenting subpoenaed witness Attorney Zuleika Lopez as well as Captain Bello, no? We believe na yung sasabihin ni Attorney Zuleika Lopez at ni Captain Bello ay na-cover na ng testimony ni Agent Calilo.
Yung problema kasi, hindi na makakapag grandstanding yung ibang mga taga-prosecution, di ba? Ako naman kasi okay lang naman di ba? Ipresenta nyo itong si Atty. Zuleika. Yan din naman ang hinihintay ng ating mga kababayan. Kumbaga highly anticipated witness yan, di ba? Talagang inaabangan, nakatutok ang sambayan. Kaya daming nanonood kahapon, mga kababayan, dahil alam nila ang ipipresenta ng prosecution walang iba kung hindi itong si Atty. Zuleika, di ba? Yun yung lumabas na mga balita sa social media na si Atty. Zuleika ang witness na isasalang sa witness stand. Magkakaalaman na. mababanggit na ulit nito si Ligutan yung mga katagang, Your Honor, please, binanggit ni BP Sara na ipapagurgur pagka sakali may mangyari sa kanya. Si First Lady, si Marcos Jr. Di ba yun? Pagkakataon na ng prosecution yun para maulit yung conditional, kahit sino magsabi ho. 1,000 na tayong nakausap ng abogado. Sinasabi nila, conditional yan, PH. Kahit sa yung formal court na settings, conditional talaga. Diba? Yan nga kung tawagin nila yan, sui generis, diba? Maliban sa pagiging legal, political din siya. Ngayon kahit sino magsabi sa akin, conditional mo sabi niya. Pag may mangyari sa akin. Wala pa naman nangyayari sa kanya. Anong kinakatakot ni Luistro? Pero in fairness dito kay Luistro, para ho atang nasaktan ho ata siya doon sa mga ipinupost ng ating mga kababayan sa social media. Dati ho kasi may laway siya, walang makeup yung mukha niya. Dito sa pagharap niya na to sa kay Ma'am Pinky, talagang inaurahan niya si Ma'am Pinky.
As well as Atty. Lotok, and as a matter of fact, they were even admitted by the defense counsel, no? So ulitin ko, Pinky, yun ha. The reasons are, they are unnecessary, they are surplusage, and they are redundancy. So these are the reasons. And ultimately, we want to spare the court with wasting its time so that we can focus and dedicate the same to other witnesses who will be presented by the prosecution.
But that particular decision coming from the public and the private prosecutors, I'm sorry, apologies ma'am, because I missed parts of it because I was also on air. Ang narinig ko po sinabi ni Attorney Kapunan, nagkaroon po kayo ng, she used actually 2 words, huddle and hurdle. Can you tell us more about that, please?
Well, we've been observing the testimony of Agent Calilong as well as the testimony of Atty. Lotok, no? And ultimately, this afternoon, we were able to resolve with finality that if we will be presenting Atty. Zuleika as well as Captain Bello, it will be a repetition already of what was testified to by the first 2 witnesses. And that includes the admission of Atty. Benluan na paulit-ulit sinasabi kanina ni Atty. Kapunan, no? Kasi there are only few things na kailangang sabihin sana nitong 2 witnesses na to. And that includes nandun sila sa loob ng detention center and they personally witnessed the Vice President utter those words of threat against the President, the First Lady, and the former Speaker, no? And it appears to us, it was witnessed actually by the public na na-cover ito ng testimony ng ating 2 agents from NBI and na-cover na rin siya repeatedly by the admissions of the defense during their cross-examination and even during recross-examination, no? So to ask Pinky, no, kung aming isasalang pa itong 2 ito, it will be a waste of time of the court because it is actually a repetition already. Uulitin na lang ang na-cover na ng mga naunang testigo. Surplus age na siya or kalabisan sapagkat na-establish na yung gusto naming ma-establish from these 2 witnesses. And it will be a redundancy or unnecessary. Redundancy pa ulit-ulit. Unnecessary, hindi na kailangan, no?
Yeah.
We would like to focus to other witnesses, other evidence na may ibang established aside from those na nasabi na ng 2 naunang testigo.
I understand, of course, that a process like that is definitely up to the prosecution or even the defense when their turn comes. We had an interview a couple of weeks ago, ma'am, and sabi mo nga meron kayong, so I think now 57 witnesses. And at any given time, you're able to reduce, subtract any of the witnesses if necessary. And in fact, meron din yung tinatawag nga that I learned from you, yung reserved witness that you were given now. What we talked about then was 3 days, but hearing from the presiding officer.
Kahit tayo ho, marami tayong natutunan dyan kay Jinky Luistro. Dyan sa pag-chair niya sa Injustice Committee, di ba yung mga katagang mini trial. Yan. Sa kanya ho nanggaling yan. Kung ito si Ma'am Pinky, meron siya natutunan na reserved witness. Tayo ho, meron tayong natutunan dyan na mini trial. Siyempre, iba naman galawang bakulaw
Officer, I think the agreement was 5 days. But when did you decide not to call as a hostile witness si Attorney Zuleika Lopez? I'm assuming it was just today, but specifically around what time, ma'am?
Well, just today, just after the conclusion of the testimony of Atty. Lotok. Although admittedly, since yesterday, we've been considering ang ganda na ng testimony ni Atty. Lotok. Halos kompleto na, but the final decision only came after the conclusion of the testimony of Atty. Lotok. To be specific, that was after recross examination, no? While admittedly, since kahapon, pinag-aaralan na talaga namin yan, and we became more convinced with his testimony today to dispense with the testimony of these 2 witnesses.
And there is no, was there any concern that because we understand that Attorney Zuleika Lopez would be a hostile witness, that it could possibly, just possibly be detrimental to the prosecution? Of course, I understand, ma'am, na pinaghandaan niyo to. Pero being a hostile witness, sabi nga ng interview kanina dito po sa BNC kay Corina at kay Willard, tricky po kasi din talaga ang hostile witness. Did it have anything to do with that?
We acknowledge that, Picky, but of course, kamukha ng sinabi mo kanina, it depends on the exigency of the trial, no? Naging observation namin na kompleto na yung gusto naming ma-establish from the testimony of the first two witnesses, and that is the ultimate reason why we are dispensing with the testimony of these two witnesses. And I wish to take note, hindi lang testimonya ni Atty. Zuleika ang dinidispense ng prosecution. It even includes our witness, Captain Bello, no? Dalawa sila na dinidispense na namin tonight, no? For the reason na na-establish na at magiging repetition na lang kung i-present pa sila.
Okay lang naman kahit i-presenta nyo, dapat naghanda yung si Ma'am Pinky Web. Naghintay din naman tayo, di ba? Dapat presenta nyo na nandyan na rin lang naman para hindi naman nabitin yung ating mga kababayan. Dapat pinagbigyan nyo na. Kasi isa yun sa mga inaabangan yung ano bang nangyari noong gabi na yon. Bakit umabot si BP Sara na talagang nasabi niya yung mga salita na yun, di ba? Binitin nyo ang hirap po kasi baka pagka-presenta pa nila. Alam naman nila yan na talagang guguho itong particular na articles of impeachment na to pagka meron hong isang pagkakamali silang ginawa dyan. Kaya hindi na ho nila ginusto na isa lang pa itong si Atty. Zuleika. Yun rin lang naman ho ang ating nakikitang dahilan dyan. Maliban doon, wala na ho. Maliwanag pa sa sikat ng araw, talagang conditional talaga yung mga sinabi na yun. Maliwanag. Itong si Kapunan at itong si Luistro, ano naman nila yan? Siyempre, trabaho naman talaga nila yan na pagmukain na talagang pinagbantaan. Itong si BP Sara, itong si Marcos Jr. at itong si Lisa Araneta Marcos. Yun naman ho talagang ano niya. Yun naman ho talagang ini-aim nila dyan, ika nga.
For the benefit of those who do not know what the testimony of Captain Bello would be, please give us the explanation. Ano ho bang ite-testify ni Captain Bello?
Well, Captain Bello was the LSB official of the House of Representatives, no, who served the transfer order to Atty. Zuleika Lopez, no, nung ililipat sana siya sa hospital while the Vice President was inside the detention center, no. She's supposed to tell the court na nakita niya nandun ang Vice President at nakita din niya si Atty. Zuleika Lopez. These are the circumstances surrounding the video conferencing where the Vice President uttered the words of threat against the President, the First Lady, and the former Speaker.
Congresswoman Jinky, so who's next? What happens now tomorrow?
Well, tomorrow I understand na nakaschedule ang oral argument. This is about the preterm evidence or documents pertaining to AMLAC, BIR, and even the bank documents, no? The issue here is whether or not those documents which pertain to acts or omissions prior to 2022, when the respondent became an impeachable official, are relevant to this impeachment trial.
Ibig sabihin ho ba na magkakaroon ng oral arguments ang magkabilang kampo para patunayan na kailangan o hindi dapat isama yung mga records ng mga bangko ni Vice President bago po siya maging Vice Presidente? Did I understand that right, ma'am?
That is correct, Pinky, no? But it does not pertain only to the bank documents. It pertains as well to SALN. It pertains also to BIR documents, the ITR, no? And the AMLAC documents, no? So ang issue dito, you are correct when you said, no? Kompletohin lang natin yung documents which are concerned in this particular issue. Kung ito bang mga dokumentong ito, which are prior to 2022, when the respondent became an impeachable official, are relevant in this impeachment trial, no? Of course, the position of the prosecution is they are relevant.
Kaso ang nakalagay sa rules yung mga bagay-bagay lamang ang dapat pag-usapan dyan sa panahon nitong si BP Sara. No? Panahon bilang Vice President itong si BP Sara. Kagaya na lamang ho yung mga binitawan niyang kataga na pagka may mangyari. Yung conditional threat ba? Diba? Yung mga kataga na yun, binitawan niya nung VP Sara siya. Ngayon kung ikukonekta yung ginulpi niyang sheriff, diba usapan na yun. Hindi na ano yan, hindi na siya. Hindi pa siya BP noon. Mayor siya ng Davao noon. Kaya hindi na nila pinisinta at ayaw din naman noong sheriff. Diba? Ayaw daw niya magkaroon ng partisipasyon dito sa kabalbalan na to na ginagawa ng prosecution. Yeah. Kaya sa tingin natin, ang mangyayari dito, kung magiging fair ang impeachment court, hindi ho pahihintulutan yung mga dokumento na yan ay yung mga gustong ipasubpina ng prosecution kagaya ng mga bank records nitong si Manscarpio, nung mga dokumento mula pa noong nung mga panahon na hindi pa siya Vice President. Kung magiging parehas ang impeachment court, sa tingin natin hindi ho nila papahintulutan yan.
And with that oral argument coming from both the prosecution and the defense, what happens after? Is that going to be a decision that will be put forward to the senator judges to vote upon if indeed pwedeng isama o hindi?
Well, actually, before I came here, no, the senator judges were discussing whether they will be voting tomorrow immediately after the oral argument, or they will be given additional time to be able to make their position on the matter. And the last thing I heard from Senator Judge Alan Cayetano is like he's requesting for a caucus, no, about the subject matter to be debated upon tomorrow by the prosecution and the defense.
Fair enough, because you had to go to our live point to be able to speak to us tonight. So we thank you for that. So tomorrow is actually going to be also, not that the other days were less important, but this is a shift now. Because are you saying na tapos na po ang issue on grave threats?
Yun na yun?
Well, we still have one witness, no? And I don't know if there will be additional witnesses pa after this one. The last witness I'm pertaining to as of now is Attorney Melvin Matibag, our NBI director, no? I understand that we have reservations, so we haven't discussed whether Attorney Melvin will be the last or whether there will be additional witnesses pa, anchored under the reservation to present additional witnesses or evidence in support of the threat article.
Just to understand it before we go on a break, ma'am, so bakit po bukas yung oral arguments on the can you include AMLAC, BIR, and other pertinent documents prior to the assumption of Sara Duterte as Vice President? Why are we jumping?
What I understand, why the reason, Pinky, is we have pending motion for issuance of subpoena. We have pending request for issuance of subpoena of these documents, including those prior to 2022. No, itong documents na to, that includes bank documents, that includes the AMLAC documents, that includes the BIR documents, no? Parang hindi naman kasama yung SALN. Parang we have them already, no? So for these 3 documents, they include those prior to 2022, and that is why I believe the impeachment court deemed it proper to set the oral argument tomorrow before they decide on the request of the prosecution for the issuance of this subpoena.
We'll be taking a very short break. We'll come back still with us,
No.
House Lead Prosecutor Congresswoman Jervil Jinky.
Ayusin mo yung postura mo, madam, ha? Yung antipara mo, wag mong ano yun, napapanood ka sa national television, di ba? Ay, yung laway mo nag-viral na. Make sure na diyan sa interview mo na yan kay Ma'am Pinky Web, wag ka na magkalat, ha? Wag nyo na wag mo na ibas itong si Bakulaw, okay? Wag nyo na ibas.
Luistro, Congresswoman, so sino pong mag-opening statement for the prosecution bukas?
Ikaw na lang.
It will be
Ikaw na lang, GK, please. Ikaw na lang ang mag-opening statement.
Congressman Cheljok, no? Of course,
si
we
Chen.
understand. He has been with the academe for so long. He has been a seasoned litigation lawyer, no? As a matter of fact, decano siya, Dean of the College of Law before he was elected as member of the House of Representatives. So we are very much confident and positive about his engagement to represent the prosecution in this debate regarding the relevancy of the documents prior to 2022 in this impeachment trial.
Let me ask you this, Congresswoman. What kind of an effect would a possible vote by the senator judges, if it comes to that nga, tungkol po dito sa pertinent documents, that they decide that prior to 2022 is unnecessary? Which means, I guess that would be a, not a loss, but you don't, I mean, you wouldn't call that victorious on your end, hindi ho ba? Kasi gusto nyo isama yung prior to 2022. Malaking epekto ho ba yan sa pagsusuri o sa debate or proving the point of unexplained wealth kung hindi po masama yung prior to 2022?
Hindi, yung prior to 2022, continuation yan nung kung tawagin nila dyan sa Senado. Meron silang bagong termino ng batas dyan. Kung tawagin yun, bendalo. Kung sakaling pahintulutan niya ang pag-subpoena ng mga dokumento, maging ng mga panahon na hindi pa BP si Sara Duterte, bendalo ho yan. Okay? Kasi nakalagay sa batas, malinaw na naman, yung mga impeachable act lamang ni BP Sara ang dapat pag-usapan dyan sa korte na yan noong Vice President siya. Kailan yon? Pagpasok niya noong 2022 hanggang sa ngayong panahong kasalukuyan. Yun lamang. Doon sa oras, pagkakataon, tagpo na hindi pa siya nanunumpa bilang Vice President, hindi pwede pakialaman yun. Impeachable government official ba ang mayor ng Davao? Hindi. Ngayon, kung Vice President siya noong mga panahon na yun at hindi siya mayor ng Davao, sa tingin natin, okay lang. Diba? Pero dahil nga, mayor siya noon, hindi siya impeachable government official, hindi pwedeng pakialaman yun. Kahit ako, kahit si Luistro, maging Vice President siya, at kalkalin yung mga panahon na pinaghahanap ng batas ng kanyang asawa at gustong gawing impeachable offension, dahil tinago niya asawa niya, hindi rin naman tayo papayag. Diba? Hindi kasali yun. Pag-usapan lang natin yung mga panahon na impeachable government official siya. Maliwanag yun. Ngayon, pagka binago nila yun, bendalo na ho yun mga kababayan.
Without dwelling on the merits, no, Pinky, and without reference to this particular impeachment trial, but by allowing the documents pertaining to acts or omissions prior to the time when the public official became an impeachable official will provide a clear picture of what happened. And by clear picture, it will provide the source, it will provide retention, ownership, control, no, and accumulation. As a matter of fact, without reference to this particular impeachment trial, if it is proven that what was acquired as ill-gotten prior to becoming an impeachable official is still retained by the public official, then there is a continuing violation of the law.
Oo, ano na natin, ayusin na natin ang ating saligang batas. No, hindi na pwede yung nakalagay sa saligang batas na dapat yung mga panahon lang siya. Dapat mula pagkapanganak ni VP Sara, kung meron siyang bank account, silipin niyo na. Mga walang yaka kayo. Ikaw, Luistro, di ka na natuto ha. Hindi ka na natuto dun sa iyong mini trial, laway sa... Kadiri
The
ka ba?
very least, RA 3019 on or perhaps the plunder law or even 6713, the law pertaining to the ethical standards of public officials and employees. No? And I wish to point out as well that with respect to the constitutional provision on accountability, particularly Section 2 of Article 11, ang binanggit lang naman doon, who are the impeachable officials?
Madam, yung laway mo, may nagbi-build up na naman, ha?
Ang binanggit din lang doon, what are the grounds for impeachment? But the Constitution never provide with respect to the timeline regarding the date of...
Hindi totoo. Sinungaling na ho yan, mga kababayan. Hindi na ho totoo yan. Malinaw yun. Ngayon, sa bagay, ano lang naman yan prosecution yan. Lahat ng paborable sa kanila, isasabihin ho nila sa lahat ng interview nila. Commission or commission of act that constitutes an impeachable offense. No? Sabi sa Section 2, Article 11, the impeachable officials are as follows: President, Vice President, members of the Constitutional Commission, and then the justices of the Supreme Court, the Ombudsman. No? And then they made mention also about the grounds. Kasama dun yung mga culpable violation of the Constitution. Yeah.
Treason, bribery, graft and corruption, betrayal of public trust, and other high crimes. But nowhere will you see the timeline as to the commission of the act, as to whether it should be committed.
Hindi na, kasi nandun na yun Hindi na yung omission ang pinag-uusapan lang natin dito. Matatapos, mag-uumpisa at matatapos, yung mga aklang ng isang government official, nung impeachable government official pa lang siya, doon pa lang mag-uumpisa yun. Kayo naman, gusto nyo kahit na mula ata nung pito si BP Sara, ginagawa pa lang siya ni Tatay Digong. Gusto nyo lahat na lang ng dokumento pwedeng makakuha laban sa kanya, gagamitin nyo Di ba? Ang mangyayari dyan, hindi mo sinagot yung tanong ni Pinky Web kung may apekto ba sa prosecution yung kung hindi pagbibigyan yung subpina. Ang sagot ho dyan, Phishing Expedition 2.0 ho yan. Hindi lang makaka-apekto. Diyan na ho sila magkakahindot-hindot, sigurado.
Prior to or during the time that the public official is an impeachable official, walang binanggit ang Constitution doon. No? And that is very clear. That is without specific reference to the subject matter of this impeachment trial.
I actually remember two things after you said that. I understand that you weren't referencing it to the issue now. So let me reference it to the impeachment proceedings, trials in the past. During the Corona impeachment trial, I do need to research on this, just to be very frank, and look back again. But were there references prior to the Chief Justice on his SAL-N that were used before he became Chief Justice? Number two, also with former President Joseph Estrada, were there also references used that the court admitted prior to him becoming President?
Yeah, that is correct. Meron. As a matter of fact, we can invoke legislative precedents, no? Sapagkat merong mga incidents na pinag-usapan during the trial which are prior to becoming the impeachable official. We can include, as a matter of fact, Pinky, yung kaso ni Justice Sereno naman, where the basis for the grant...
Hindi, yung kay Sereno, dami mong pwedeng banggitin na pagkakataon. Bakit kay Sereno pa? Hindi nga umabot sa korte yan Nag-resign siya Di ba? Doon kay Corona at kay Estrada, doon ka magano kasi nag-run ng full-blown trial dyan. Pagkikira naman talaga
of a warranty proceeding. Yung failure niya na i-disclose yung kanyang salary as a UP professor, which was during the time, long before she became a member of the Supreme Court, right? No? So, ang point doon, without, again, particular reference to this impeachment trial, no? Kung yung prior conduct ay ginagamit as basis of disqualification, just like what happened to Justice Sereno, then it must be considered as well in removing impeachable public officials.
Tingnan na lang natin mamaya.
And siguro para mabalikan lang yung kay Justice Sereno, Congresswoman, hindi po kasi natuloy yung impeachment proceedings laban sa kanya.
I understand.
Hindi po ba? Well, just
I understand.
making it clear, except yung, of course, ang natuloy po yung kay Chief Justice Corona.
Hindi, nga kasi, yung mga yan, imi-mislead ka nila. Kaya mga kababayan natin, mag-ingat po kayo sa kakapakinig dito sa mga prosecutions lawyer na to, mga congressman na to. Kasi yan mga yan, meron silang interest na tinutulak. Si BP Sara, wala ko siyang kapangyarihan ngayong mga panahon na to. Mula 2022 hanggang ngayon, lame duck vice president po siya. Diretsuin ko na po kayo, lame duck vice president po siya. Noon pa man. Ano hong magagawa ni Sara Duterte? Ang kinatatakot po nila na pagka naging presidente si Sara, doon na ho magkakanda, hendot-hendot itong mga to. Sigurado, makakakita tayo, uulan ng orange.
And former President Joseph Estrada. I mean, it's we have to look back at all the impeachment proceedings that happened in the past. So now that will be the case, it will be still up to the senator judges to decide on this. Now,
correct.
I want to go back to some of the highlights of what happened today, which is really part of my questioning. Dahil nagulat din po ako, I was surprised with the turn of events towards the last part of the impeachment day. Anong araw na po ba to? 1, 2, 3, day 5. All right.
Day 5.
Ang sinabi niyo po kanina, maganda na po kasi yung testimony ni Attorney Lotok at ni Senior Agent Calilong. Now,
perhaps hindi lang siguro maganda kung hindi kompleto na.
Patapusin mo ang tanong, parang talagang nyo na, yung tipong sabi nyo na, yung di patapos ang tanong, sabat kayo na sabat. Iba naman kasi, pambihira naman Okay lang sana kung nag-vlog kayo, di ba? Kaso hindi vlog yan. Yan, interview ng napakagandang Pinky Web. Ngayon, di pa...
Kompleto.
And the supposed offer of testimony for Attorney Zuleika and Captain Bello were served already in the testimony of Agent Kalilong and Attorney Lotto.
Okay. Having said that, ma'am, yung pong kanina, some of the points that I wrote down, yung kinanong po kasi itong grave threats, because of course ito naman po yung pinag-uusapan the past days. Attorney Binluan, when asked, said the defense was saying it wasn't a threat in the first place. Ang sabi po niya, it was a mere response to a Q&A and it was never aimed directly to BBM, the First Lady, and the former Speaker. Yun po yung kanyang sinabi. I forget who asked that question. Could have been Senator Judge Pia Cayetano. But do you remember that, ma'am?
Yeah, but our position has always been res ipsa loquitur, no? I do not want to dwell really too much on the merits of the case, but ever since ang position ng prosecution dyan is res ipsa loquitur, and those utterances constitute an impeachable offense.
Can we talk about, though, are you allowed, please forgive me if you are not allowed, are you allowed to even comment on some of the seeming flaws that the defense were highlighting during the questioning, the cross-examination po kay Attorney Binluan, yung pong mga typographical errors and even the mismatch of the dates?
I don't know really how my fellow prosecutors are addressing the questions, no? But under the sub judice rule, and we were reminded as well by the presiding officer during the first day of the trial, we're not supposed to comment on the on the merits of this impeachment trial, no? And that is why I've been very, very restrictive in providing answers to your questions, no? But nevertheless, about the inconsistencies, discrepancies, without again specific reference to the subject matter of this impeachment trial, as to whether it will affect the theory of our case, it depends if it is significant or not. Our position is they are not significant.
Hindi significant yung mga typographical error, no? Hindi significant. Pero pagka sa defense, merong ganong klaseng typo, na kung malaking problema ho yung mga kababayan.
It was also Attorney Lotto who said that the grave threats were real and actual. I think that's what he said yesterday. All right. So it's day 5. Bukas po ay day 6. Equally, I'm sure interesting, especially because of this oral argument on documents, BIR files, etc. Last question, ma'am. What happens to that BIR box? Does that mean that if the vote becomes favorable to the prosecution, does it necessarily mean that the BIR box can be opened?
Okay, so to update the viewing public, no, the BIR box was returned already by the impeachment court to the BIR, no? But I wish to share as well that part of the request for issuance of subpoena is an expanded list for BIR documents, no? And that is supposed to include what we believe are inside this BIR box, no? So we hope that we will be able to get the favorable judgment of the impeachment court with respect to the debate which will happen tomorrow, because doon nakasalalay yung completeness ng mga documents na nire-request ng prosecution on this request for issuance of subpoena. Kasama doon yung expanded list ng BIR documents, not only those which we believe are inside the box, but even the other documents of the BIR which we believe are pertinent as well in this impeachment trial.
And just to last question, ma'am, I saw you yesterday together with some of the House prosecutors and even, of course, the defense. How are you guys? Are you in high spirits? Pagod ho ba kayo? Kamusta ho kayo, ang prosecutor, public and private?
The prosecutors are always in high spirit, both the public and the private prosecutors, no? We believe in...
nga mga kababayan, abang lang ho kayo at mag-uumpisa na ang oral argument at hihahatid ko sa inyo dito sa PH Update ang pinaka-latest na kaganapan dyan sa impeachment trial court. Yan sa impeachment itong si Vice President Sara Duterte. Muli, ako ho humihiling sa inyo ng pabor na isama ho natin sa ating panalangin na itong mga individual na to, kagaya si Senator Rolando Marcoleta, Pastor Kibuloy, si Tatay Digong, malapit na umuwi si Tatay Dig siya. Abang ho kayo. Pagka umuwi yan, tayo lahat pupunta ng airport sigurado. Meron tayong pasalubong na tsokolate kay Tatay Dig. So, tuloy-tuloy na pananalangin ho. Kasi balita ko, i-dismantle na daw ho ng Amerika ang ICC. Lapit na umuwi si Tatay Dig. Panalangin ho natin yung mga nagsasakripisyo ho ngayon para sa sambayan ng Pilipino. Una na dyan, siyempre, yung mga nakakulong, kilala nyo naman ho kung sino-sino yung mga yan. Yung mga nasa labas naman, panalangin din ho natin, kagaya ni Senator Alan Peter Cayetano, na tuloy-tuloy ang pagbibigay sa kanya ng katalinuhan, gabayan siya ng lakas, ng tapang para nanindigan para sa bawat isang Pilipino ngayong mga panahon na to. Kasi balita natin, itong si Melvin Matibag, ang tinatarget naman ho ngayon yung Clark, yung parang sport dome, yung kaldero, yung naratibo ho ngayon sa social media. Panood nyo na ho yun. Ang tinatarget doon sa tingin ko si Senator Cayetano. Maraming salamat po mga kababayan. Ano natin ang Pilipinas.